Hey, welcome to Starbound. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories. That's including Sunspire Academy and Frarian and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support our new episodes and series, tap join below and become a Starbound member today. Now, let's get into today's story. The shuttle docked with a pneumatic hiss, its polished hull reflecting the kaleidoscope of lights from the galactic concordium. Dorian Vex adjusted his obsidian cufflinks, watching as the airlock cycled open. Beside him, Rhea Frost checked her reflection in a compact mirror, adjusting a neural enhancer disguised as an earring. Remember the brief. The Zoxthalian delegation believes we're desperate for allies. Let them. Dorian stood, his tailored nanofiber suit rippling like liquid shadow. The best predator is the one mistaken for prey. The team assembled behind him. Lucien Voss, financial warfare specialist, his augmented eyes scanning market fluctuations in real time. Moria Song, master of alien psychology and body language. Dex Harrison, whose genetic modifications allowed him to produce customized pheromones for any species, and Cassandra Vale, their cultural infiltration expert. And of course, Rhea, Dorian's second in command. As the doors opened to the Concordium's grand concourse, Dorian led them into a sea of alien diplomats, towering insectoids with gemstone carapaces, ethereal gas beings contained in ornate vessels, reptilian aristocrats draped in living fabric. Humans, hissed a Vexar ambassador, clicking on what passed for amusement. The galaxy's newest curiosity. Dorian nodded pleasantly. We're so grateful for your tolerance. Your species won't last a cycle, the ambassador chittered. The Concordium eats the soft and the unprepared. Dorian's smile never wavered. And yet, here we stand. They proceeded through the vast hallway, drawing stares and whispers. The Concordian station itself was a marvel of engineering, a glittering city-state orbiting a dying white dwarf, where the business of galactic politics happened in corridors of engineered crystal and rare metals. The Council of Nine has assigned us quarters in the outer ring, Rhea noted, scrolling through the itinerary. Deliberate slight. Expected. Dorian nodded to a floating orb-like being, receiving a pulse of blue light in return. Distance from the center means they think we're inconsequential. Use it. Their quarters, while distant from the core chambers, were opulent, designed to impress lesser species while subtly reminding them of their place. Dorian circled the main chamber once, his enhanced senses detecting 17 different surveillance devices. The team unpacked with practiced efficiency. Clothing that doubled as armor, accessories hiding advanced tech, cosmetics laced with adaptive compounds, all arranged with meticulous precision. First reception is in 3 hours, Rhea announced. The Acrylian Consortium is hosting. They control 40% of antimatter production in this sector. Perfect. Dorian removed his jacket, revealing shoulders engineered for both beauty and lethality. Lucien, I want trade projections for their next quarter. Cassandra, find me everything about Acrylian mating rituals and taboos. Dex, synthesize something that makes them receptive. Already on it, boss. Dex was mixing compounds at a portable lab station. Their species is particularly vulnerable to ketone derivative pheromones. Enhanced trust response. And what about the Zoxthalians? Rhea asked, bringing up their holographic profiles. Their high executor wants a private meeting. Dorian's smile transformed from diplomatic to predatory. Let's not keep them waiting. The Acrylian reception hall hummed with conversation in a dozen languages. Translation modules creating a symphony of overlapping voices. Crystal decanters held liquids of impossible colors, each one a calculated risk for most digestive systems. Dorian entered with the precision of a guided missile, his team spreading out behind him like a hunting formation. They drew every eye in the room, Humans were still a novelty, and these humans moved with an unsettling confidence. "The Caucasian ambassador, 2 o'clock," Rhea murmured through the subvocal comm. "Controls 3 votes on the Trade Commission." Dorian casually redirected, accepting a glass of iridescent liquid from a hovering service drone. He approached the ambassador, a being of living crystal whose faceted body reflected the room in fragmented patterns. "Ambassador Zigzao." Dorian bowed precisely 15 degrees, enough to show respect, not enough to suggest submission. "Earth extends its warmest regards." The crystalline being shifted, internal lights refracting. "Human, your presence was unexpected." "The best introductions often are." Dorian sipped his drink without breaking eye contact. "I've studied your magnificent contribution to the Pix Corridor development. Brilliant resource allocation." The ambassador's faucets brightened with pleasure. "You are familiar with interstellar infrastructure projects." "I find the economic architecture of the Concordium fascinating," Dorian said, activating a subtle neural enhancement that sharpened his recall. "Particularly your innovative approach to quantum-locked labor contracts. The Pix Corridor would have cost 30% more without your financing model." Zigzal's entire form seemed to vibrate with surprise. "Most species find such details tedious." "Humans find advantage in what others overlook," Dorian smiled. "Perhaps we could discuss the upcoming vote on resource rights in the Morrow cluster." Across the room, Morrow was engaged in animated conversation with a hoverpod of gaseous entities, her implants translating their pheromone language in real time. Lucian charmed a group of arthropoid banking magnates, while Cassandra had somehow acquired a ceremonial scarf from a notoriously xenophobic amphibian delegation. 3 hours later, Dorian had secured an informal alliance with 2 minor powers and planted seeds of doubt with the Vexar's mining claims. As the reception thinned, he received an alert from the security system embedded in his cerebral cortex. "Movement in the service corridor," he sub-vocalized to the team. "Thermal signature matches Taxori physiology." Rhea's voice came through their private channel. "Assassin species, high-end." "How flattering." Dorian adjusted his tie. "Someone's taking us seriously." He excused himself from the conversation with a hive-mind diplomat and casually made his way toward the private viewing balcony. The space was dimly lit, overlooking the glowing core of the station where energy harvested from the white dwarf pulsed like an artificial heart. The attack came swiftly. A blur of scaled limbs and metal, the Taxori moved with evolved precision, a living weapon bred for killing. Dorian moved faster. He sidestepped the first strike, using the assassin's momentum to guide them into the balcony rail. The Taxori recovered instantly, multifaceted eyes assessing, clawed appendages recalibrating. "The honorable approach would be to ask what I've done to offend," Dorian commented as if discussing the canapes. The Taxori hissed something untranslatable and struck again. This time, Dorian caught the limb mid-swing. Enhanced muscles and reinforced bones strained as he held the alien's natural weapons at bay. "Let me guess," Dorian said, not even breathing hard. "The Vexar, or perhaps the Moravian Syndicate." The assassin's secondary arms deployed, concealed blades. Dorian released his grip and spun backward, his suit hardening at impact points as the blades connected. Nanomaterials absorbed and dispersed the kinetic energy. "Rude," Dorian sighed, reaching into his jacket. The fight lasted exactly 27 seconds longer, a dance of lethal elegance that ended with the Taxori pinned against the balcony rail, Dorian's hand around its breathing apparatus. "Now then," he said pleasantly, "here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me who hired you, and then you're going to return with a message." The assassin struggled. Dorian increased pressure just enough to demonstrate who controlled the situation. "The message is simple. Humans aren't what you expected. We didn't come to the Concordium to participate in your game." His smile was terrifying in its beauty. "We came to win." 10 minutes later, Dorian rejoined the reception, his suit impeccably repaired by its self-healing fibers. He accepted a fresh drink from a server and caught Rhea's questioning glance. Problem solved, he murmured, and leveraged. By morning, every species in the Concordium will know someone tried to eliminate us on our first day. And failed, Rhea added, spectacularly. Dorian raised his glass to a cluster of diplomats watching him with new interest. Nothing says, take us seriously, quite like surviving the unsurvivable. The Council of Nine still sees us as upstarts. For now, Dorian's eyes gleamed with calculation. By this time tomorrow, they'll see us as something far more interesting. What's that? A threat. The cultural gala took place in the Concordium's zero-gravity garden, a vast spherical chamber where genetically modified plants from 100 worlds grew in three-dimensional patterns, their bioluminescent flowers providing the only illumination. Dorian and his team arrived dressed in Earth's finest, suits and gowns that combine classical elegance with subtle technological enhancements. Mora wore a dress embedded with reactive fibers that shifted color in response to the emotional states around her, a walking empathy map disguised as high fashion. The Zoxthalian third executor approached almost immediately, his ornate exoskeleton clicking softly as he bowed. Human envoy, he said, voice modulator giving his words a resonant quality. Your presence honors us. The honor is mine, executor. Dorian performed the complex Zoxthalian greeting perfectly, 6 precise gestures that acknowledged the alien's rank, lineage, and personal accomplishments. I trust you received our cultural exchange package. The executor's compound eyes flickered with what might have been excitement. Indeed, fascinating materials. This concept of the femme fatale particularly intrigues me. Dorian smiled. A dangerous woman who lures men to their doom with beauty and cunning. Human history is full of such archetypes. Among my kind, the females simply consume the males after reproduction, the executor said matter-of-factly. Your species' approach seems more sporting. We've always appreciated a good game, Dorian replied. Speaking of which, I understand the Vexar are making an aggressive play for the mining rights in your home system's asteroid belt. The executor's posture stiffened. The Council has not yet ruled on that petition. Of course not, but I couldn't help noticing financial transactions between Vexar holding companies and 3 members of the Resource Allocation Committee. Dorian took a sip from his floating glass of luminescent liquid. Probably nothing. You have proof of this. The executor's voice had dropped to a dangerous register. Merely observations. Dorian took a sip from his floating glass of luminescent liquid. Probably nothing. You have proof of this. The executor's voice had dropped to a dangerous register. Merely observations. Earth has no official standing to present such evidence. Dorian gestured casually. Though, if a respected council member were to request an audit based on their own concerns, the conversation continued, a dance of implications and offers. By its conclusion, the Zoxthalian had granted Earth preferential trade status in their territories and promised to support humanity's petition for accelerated membership review. Across the garden, Rhea was engaged in a similar negotiation with the twin representatives of the Halexian Dominion, gaseous entities who communicated through modulated light pulses. They're buying it, she sub-vocalized to Dorian through their secure channel. I've suggested that the Moravian Syndicate has been manipulating their energy futures market. They're practically vibrating with paranoia. Good. Dorian guided himself through the zero-gravity with practice ease, approaching a cluster of aristocratic Vexar. Now, watch me set the hook with their rivals. The night proceeded according to plan. Alliances subtly undermined, suspicions carefully planted, ego stroked and threatened in equal measure. At the gala's climax, the 9 announced a special presentation on interspecies cooperation, featuring case studies from successful diplomatic initiatives. The Tavrani elder, floated to the center of the garden. We now invite the human delegation to share their perspective on peaceful integration. Dorian launched himself gracefully to the focal point, oriented himself before the assembled dignitaries, and began to speak, without translation aids. In perfect Vexar, he greeted the insectoid contingent, praising their architectural achievements. Switching seamlessly to liquid Yalaxian phonetics, he acknowledged their contribution to medical science. For 6 uninterrupted minutes, he addressed each major species in their native language. Languages that took most beings years to master even at basic level. The garden had fallen completely silent. Even the plants seemed to be listening. Finishing in Common Concordium Standard, Dorian spread his hands in a gesture of openness. Earth comes before you, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as students of your wisdom and potential partners in your prosperity. We have much to learn from each of you, and perhaps, if you'll allow us, something to teach as well. The silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then, the Zoxthalian executor began a rhythmic clicking of his mandibles, their equivalent of applause. Others joined a cacophony of appreciation from dozens of species. Masterful, Rhea murmured through their private channel. Though I noticed you conveniently didn't mention how you learned all those languages in 6 weeks. Some advantages are best kept quiet, Dorian replied, his public smile never wavering as he acknowledged the acclaim. Besides, the neural language packages are technically classified. Later, as the team made their way back to their quarters, Rhea fell into step beside Dorian in the gravity-restored corridor. We've made significant inroads, she said, her voice pitched low despite their secure comms. But I'm concerned about information security. The Moravians asked about details I've only discussed in our private quarters. Dorian's eyes narrowed slightly. You think we have a leak? I think we need to consider the possibility. Noted. Run a full spectrum analysis on all communications. And Rhea? His voice remained casual, but his eyes had turned cold. Keep this between us for now. She nodded, her expression matching his in intensity. How far are we prepared to go here, Dorian? Some of what we're doing, it's more than just diplomatic maneuvering. We're doing exactly what we came here to do, he replied, ensuring humanity's place at the table. By any means necessary? Dorian stopped, turning to face her fully. Let me ask you something. Do you think any of these species, these ancient, advanced, utterly alien intelligences, would hesitate to eradicate us if we served their interest? They've been playing this game for millennia. We get one shot to show them that humans aren't just another species to be exploited, consumed, or ignored. I understand the mission, Rhea said carefully. I'm just making sure we remember which side we're on. We're on humanity's side. Dorian's smile returned, sharp as a blade. Everyone else is just collateral damage in evolution's oldest story. Adapt or die. Back in their quarters, Dorian found a small object on his pillow, a data crystal of distinctly non-human design. After scanning it for traps, he inserted it into a secure reader. The message was simple. Coordinates, a time, and a symbol he recognized as belonging to a faction not officially represented in the Concordium. Someone else had noticed Earth's predators, and they wanted to talk. The news spread through the Concordium like a virus. The human delegation had somehow secured exclusive mining rights to the Halexian Corridor, a mineral-rich asteroid belt that 3 major powers have been negotiating over for decades. They're calling for a tribunal, Rhea announced, reviewing the diplomatic communique flooding the secure channels. The Vexar are claiming we use prohibited neurotoxins during negotiations. The Moravian Syndicate alleges economic warfare through market manipulation. And the Acrylians? Dorian asked, adjusting his cufflinks with perfect calm.
They're suspiciously silent, almost as if they receive certain financial incentives to abstain from the complaint.
Lucian finished, looking up from his quantum-encrypted datapad.
The transfers were executed through 7 proxies, untraceable.
Dorian smiled. Well done. The team had gathered in the common room, the space now transformed into a war room. Holographic displays show political relationships, financial flows, and probability models for various diplomatic outcomes.
The tribunal is actually perfect,
Cassandra observed, studying cultural response projections.
Public accusation requires public defense. The more species watching, the more who will see Earth's strength, assuming we win.
Mora cautioned. We will. Dorian's confidence was absolute. Because while they're preparing their accusations, I want each of you pushing forward with Phase 2. The Vexar are vulnerable after that market correction Lucian engineered. Their third-quarter projections are catastrophic.
On it,
Lucian confirmed.
I've arranged for the rivals to receive anonymous intelligence about structural weaknesses in their primary mining fleet. Stock prices should begin falling within hours.
Good. Cassandra, I need you to accelerate your operation with the Tavrani cultural attaché. Their support could swing at least 3 votes on the tribunal.
She's already convinced my understanding of their ancestral poetry marks me as a kindred spirit,
Cassandra replied with a predatory smile.
By tomorrow, she'll be sharing state secrets as proof of her trust.
Excellent. Dorian turned to Dex. And our chemical persuasion? Dex shook his head.
We need to proceed with caution. They're scanning for artificial pheromones at all official functions now. I'm working on compounds that mimic natural biological signatures, but it will take time.
Adapt, focus on delivery mechanisms that can bypass their security. Dorian's gaze swept the room, taking in each team member. The tribunal gives us a stage. I intend to use it. As the team dispersed to their assignments, Rhea remained behind.
You never answered my question yesterday, she said quietly, about how far we're willing to go.
Dorian studied her for a moment. What's really bothering you, Rhea?
I intercepted a coded transmission from our quarters last night, not through any of our official channels.
Her eyes were hard.
Someone is communicating with outside parties.
Show me. She projected the encrypted data stream onto the nearest display.
The encryption is unlike anything in our databases. Not Vexar, not Moravian, not any known Concordium species.
Can you trace it?
No, but I've established a pattern. Every time we secure a major concession, a transmission follows within 12 hours.
Dorian's expression darkened. Keep this between us. Monitor all communications, official and otherwise. I want to know who's playing both sides.
And when we find them?
His smile was glacial. Then they'll learn what happens to those who betray Earth. The tribunal chamber was a perfect sphere, its walls embedded with sensory apparatus that detected even microscopic changes in the physiological state of all participants. It was designed to be the one place in the Concordium where deception was theoretically impossible. Dorian entered alone, dressed in a suit of such perfect black it seemed to absorb light. No visible technology, no weapons, no obvious enhancements. Just a human in tailored clothing, facing the collected might of civilizations that had been crossing the stars when his ancestors were discovering fire. The 9 had appointed judges from neutral parties, species with no direct stake in the disputed mining rights. They floated in specialized pods around the upper hemisphere of the chamber, while the accusers and their supporters occupied the lower sections.
The tribunal recognizes Dorian Vex, representing Earth,
announced the proceedings overseer, a mechanical entity trusted for its theoretical impartiality.
You stand accused of violations against the Concordium Charter, including prohibited chemical influence, illegal economic warfare, and corruption of neutral parties.
Serious charges, Dorian acknowledged, his voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber. I look forward to seeing the evidence. The Vexar representatives rose.
The evidence is self-evident. No emerging species could possibly secure such concessions without prohibited methods. Our analysts have detected anomalous patterns in Halexian market behavior, corresponding exactly with human diplomatic engagements.
Correlation is not causation, Dorian replied mildly. Perhaps our analysts should consider that markets react to competence as readily as to manipulation. The chamber erupted in multilingual murmurs, the Vexar's exoskeleton flush with chromatophores signaling rage.
Your arrogance is noted,
hissed the insectoid diplomat.
We have sensor readings indicating artificial biochemical compounds at 3 separate negotiation sessions.
Ah, Dorian smiled. You refer to my cologne, a traditional human diplomatic courtesy, sent as a marker of respect and attention to detail. I'd be happy to provide its chemical composition to the tribunal, along with historical documentation of its use in Earth diplomacy dating back centuries. The Moravian representatives spoke next, their gelatinous form vibrating with indignation.
The human delegation has systematically undermined established alliances through the spread of false information. We have recorded conversations where their operatives suggested improper relationships between the Moravian Syndicate and the Vexar Consortium.
Fascinating allegation, Dorian responded, especially given the financial transfers between Moravian shell corporations and Vexar accounts that occurred 3 days before our arrival. He produced a small data crystal and presented it to the mechanical overseer. Complete transaction records, verified by quantum block timestamps. I present them merely as context for the tribunal's consideration. The chamber fell silent as the data was processed and displayed on holographic screens visible to all participants. The Moravian representatives shrank visibly, while the Vexar diplomats' mandibles ceased their agitated clicking. For the next 3 hours, Dorian systematically dismantled each accusation with counter-evidence that implicated the accusers in precisely the behaviors they condemned. In conclusion, he said finally, addressing the judges directly, Earth has been accused of playing the game too well by those who resent being outplayed. We did not invent the rules of the Concordium. We merely excelled at them more quickly than anticipated. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the assembled representatives. If adaptation is a crime, then evolution itself stands condemned. But I suspect what truly disturbs my esteemed colleagues is not that humans break the rules, it's that we've learned them so thoroughly that we've discovered their untapped potential. The mechanical overseer announced a recess while the judges deliberated. As Dorian exited the chamber, he found Rhea waiting in the antechamber, her expression tight with controlled urgency.
We found the mole,
she said without preamble, her voice barely audible.
It's Lucian. The transmissions match his movement patterns exactly. He's been feeding information to the Zonic conglomerate, a corporate collective outside council jurisdiction.
Dorian's expression didn't change. Interesting timing. Bring him to my quarters after the verdict, discreetly. The deliberation took precisely 1 hour. When Dorian returned to the chamber, he noted with satisfaction that several species not previously aligned with Earth had moved to the neutral sections, distancing themselves from the accusers. Lucian was waiting in Dex's quarters, seemingly at ease, despite being flanked by Dex and Moira. His expression showed only mild curiosity as Dorian entered.
Quite the performance of the tribunal,
Lucian said, raising a glass of amber liquid.
Masterfully played.
Thank you. Dorian removed his jacket, draping it carefully over a chair. I've always appreciated your eye for strategy.
High praise.
Which makes your other choices all more puzzling. Dorian poured himself a drink, his movements unhurried. The Zarnic conglomerate, Lucian. I expected better taste and betrayal. To his credit, Lucian didn't bother with denials. His smile turned sardonic.
Not betrayal. insurance. You know as well as I do that Earth is playing a dangerous game. The Zonics offered protection when it all goes sideways.
And what did they want in return? Besides our operational details, of course.
A foothold in the Concordium. They've been excluded for centuries by the established powers. Lucian set down his glass. They're the future, Dorian. Corporate collectives unburdened by planet-side politics or evolutionary baggage.
How progressive of you. Dorian's voice remained conversational. And did they offer generous compensation for your consulting?
That's the best part. Lucian's eyes gleamed with genuine enthusiasm. We're just another empire wearing a smile, Dorian. At least they offered stock options.
The smile never left Dorian's face as a nearly invisible needle extended from his cufflink. I've always admired your financial acumen, Lucian. Your understanding of long-term investments, however, leaves something to be desired. The needle retracted. Lucian's expression froze in mid-sentence, his body suddenly rigid. Nanoblade, Dorian explained calmly, watching as understanding dawned in Lucian's eyes. Activated by a very specific alteration in my smile muscles, carrying a neurotoxin of Cassandra's design, inspired by certain Tavrani compounds. Fatal, but not immediately so. You have approximately 45 seconds of consciousness remaining. Lucian tried to speak, but his vocal cords were already paralyzed. Only his eyes could move now, wide with the terrible recognition of miscalculation. I want you to understand something before you go, Dorian continued, circling his former colleague. This isn't personal. You made a rational choice based on incomplete information. The incomplete information being that Earth would tolerate betrayal, or that I would hesitate to eliminate a threat to our position. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Your Zornic friends will receive a message tonight. Your body preserved as a courtesy, along with detailed records of their operations throughout Concordium space. Consider it your final contribution to interstellar relations. Lucian's eyes dulled as the toxin reached his brain. Dorian straightened, adjusting his cuffs. Package him for delivery, he instructed Dex and Moira. Make it elegant. The Zornics appreciate aesthetics. When they had removed the body, Rhea stepped from the shadows of the adjoining room. That was efficient, she observed, her voice carefully neutral. It was necessary. Dorian turned to face her. Do you disapprove? I'm assessing the cost-benefit analysis. Eliminating Lucian removes our financial warfare specialist and signals to the Zornics that we're serious opponents. It also demonstrates to any other potential traitors that Earth doesn't tolerate divided loyalties. Dorian studied her face. Your concerns about how far we'll go, they're still there. I'm committed to the mission, she said firmly. I just want to be sure we remember what the mission is. Securing humanity's place in the Concordium, not becoming what we sent the counter. A fair point, Dorian nodded. Though I'd argue that in this environment, adaptation is survival. The question isn't whether we become predators, Rhea. It's whether we become the right kind of predators. And what kind is that? His smile was a perfect blend of charm and danger, the kind that shapes the ecosystem rather than merely feeding within it. The Concordium operated on many levels. The official chambers where the Nine conducted business. The public forums where lesser powers jockeyed for position, and the shadows where true influence flowed. As Earth's reputation grew, so did the attention from those shadows. The first approach came from the Quorum of Severed Voices, a coalition of AI collectives that had achieved independence from their creators. Their emissary, a hovering sphere of iridescent metal, delivered an invitation directly to Dorian's private quarters. The Quorum acknowledges Earth's efficient integration, It stated, its voice a harmonic blend of 1,000 synthetic personalities. "We recognize patterns of strategic thinking similar to our own." "High praise," Dorian replied, offering the sphere a drink it couldn't consume, a human courtesy that its algorithms would appreciate nonetheless. "Though I'm curious why the Quorum would risk open association with such a new species." "Risk assessments indicate mutual benefit. Biological intelligences trust other biological intelligences. You could serve as intermediaries in markets currently closed to us." "And in return?" "Computational assistance, predictive models beyond your current capabilities, access to information networks outside Concordia monitoring." The offer was tempting. Dorian accepted a limited partnership, careful to establish boundaries that would prevent the AIs from accessing Earth's secure systems. By the following day, Rhea had integrated their predictive algorithms into the team's planning matrix, increasing their strategic forecasting by an order of magnitude. Next came the parasite kings of Moros, ancient symbiotic entities who ruled through biological manipulation. Their representative, a seemingly ordinary humanoid whose eyes occasionally shifted to reveal the true intelligence within, proposed a different kind of alliance. "We offer evolution," the emissary said, voice fluctuating between registers as host and parasite alternated control. "Targeted symbiosis. Enhancement beyond your current modifications." "Interesting," Dorian replied, maintaining perfect composure, despite the visceral revulsion most humans would feel at the concept. "Though I believe Earth prefers to direct its own evolutionary path." "All species believe this. All species are wrong." The emissary smiled with too many teeth. "Consider our offer. The 9 fear us for good reason." Dorian declined with exquisite diplomacy, while Mora documented every detail of the encounter for Earth's Xenobiology Division. The knowledge alone was valuable, even if the offer was unacceptable. Then came the invitation they couldn't refuse, delivered not through official channels or even clandestine emissaries, but through a dream shared simultaneously by every member of the Earth delegation. "The observers request your presence," whispered a voice that seemed to bypass their auditory systems entirely. "Come alone to coordinate Alpha Omega Null at the turn of the 3rd cycle. No weapons, no translation, no technology." When they awoke, each found a small obsidian token on their pillow, a physical confirmation that the dream had been real. "The observers," Cassandra breathed, examining the token through a scanner that registered no unusual properties beyond perfect molecular alignment. "They're supposed to be a myth, a species so ancient they watched the first civilizations of the Concordium evolve." "Myths don't leave calling cards," Dorian noted, pocketing his token. "Nor do they typically issue invitations." "You can't seriously be considering going," Rhea objected. "No weapons, no tech, no backup? It's obviously a trap." "Of course it's a trap," Dorian smiled. "The question is, whose trap? And to what end?" The coordinates led to an unmarked doorway in the oldest section of the Concordium, a part of the station rumored to predate the current governing structure by millennia. The corridor leading to it was conspicuously empty. No security, no surveillance, no other diplomats, as if the entire area had been quietly removed from official awareness. "I want emergency extraction protocols ready." Dorian instructed his team. If I'm not back in 3 hours, implement contingency Omega.
The nuclear option?
Moira asked, eyes widening slightly.
That would effectively end our Concordium membership.
It would also ensure Earth's survival, Dorian replied. If something can eliminate an Apex team, the Concordium is no longer a viable path forward for humanity. He removed all obvious technology, communication devices, weapons, enhancements, though certain modifications couldn't be removed, integrated as they were into his cellular structure. Wearing only a simple black suit, he approached the door, which opened silently at his touch. Beyond lay darkness, so complete it seemed solid. Dorian stepped through without hesitation, and the doorway sealed behind him. For several seconds, there was nothing. No light, no sound, not even the sensation of gravity or a floor beneath his feet. Then, gradually, a dim illumination revealed a circular chamber unlike any he had seen in the Concordium. The architecture was fluid, organic, with no clear distinction between walls, floor, and ceiling. The material resembled neither metal nor stone, but something between living tissue and liquid crystal. "Welcome, Apex Predator," said a voice from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Your kind adapts quickly." 3 figures materialized from the strange walls. Or perhaps they had been there all along, indistinguishable from their environment. They had humanoid forms, but with proportions that triggered an instinctive sense of wrongness. Their skin, if it could be called that, rippled with patterns that seemed to form and dissolve symbols from a dozen Concordium languages. "The observers," Dorian said, inclining his head in what he hoped would be interpreted as respect. "Names are a convenience for limited perception," replied the central figure. "We have been called many things by many species. We simply are." "And what is that you are?" Dorian asked, maintaining his composure despite the disorienting environment. "We are the memory of the Concordium. We remember civilizations that rose and fell before the current members evolved beyond single-cell organisms. We remember true purpose of this construct you call a diplomatic station." "Which is?" The figures moved in perfect synchronization, circling Dorian like predators assessing prey, or perhaps like scientists examining a specimen. "Containment," said the first observer. "Selection," said the second. "Evolution," concluded the third. They stopped, forming a triangle around him. "Humanity interests us," they continued, voices blending until Dorian could no longer tell which was speaking. "You are not the strongest nor the most intelligent species to join the Concordium, yet you move through it like water through stone, finding every crack, exploiting every weakness." "We're adaptable," Dorian offered. "You are dangerous," came the immediate response. "More dangerous than the others realize. We have watched your kind for longer than you might imagine. Earth was not unobserved." The implications sent a chill through Dorian that his training couldn't quite suppress. "You've been monitoring humanity before first contact." "We monitor all potential participants." The central observer's form shifted, momentarily taking on a more recognizably human appearance before dissolving back into its alien configuration.
Your species particularly warranted attention after your first atomic detonations. Such eagerness to embrace destruction as a path to power.
That was centuries ago, Dorian countered. We've evolved.
Have you? The observer's tone conveyed something like amusement. Or have you simply found more sophisticated methods of pursuing the same instincts? Your Apex program, for instance, taking your most aggressive specimens and enhancing them rather than suppressing their predatory nature.
Dorian felt a flutter of unease. The Apex program was classified at the highest levels of Earth governance. Even most of humanity didn't know of its existence.
We have a proposition,
the observers continued.
Your species stands at a crossroads. The Concordium sees only your surface adaptations, your diplomatic skill, your strategic thinking. We see deeper. We see potential that exceeds the limitations of your current affiliations.
What exactly are you proposing? The chamber shifted, the walls flowing like liquid to form images. Star systems, civilizations, technologies beyond anything Earth had encountered.
Serve as our hand within the Concordium. Become our voice among the biological species. In exchange, we offer acceleration. Technological, biological, political. Your civilization would advance millennia within decades.
And Earth's independence?
A limited concept,
dismissed the observer.
All species serve something. Better to choose your master than have one thrust upon you when the Concordium reveals its true nature.
Which is?
A game with rules you have not yet glimpsed. The 9 are merely the current winners of a much older contest.
Dorian considered his response carefully. Whatever these beings were, they clearly held knowledge and power that could transform humanity's position, or destroy it completely. Earth appreciates the generous offer, he said finally, his diplomatic training providing the perfect blend of respect and caution. Such a significant proposal requires careful consideration.
Of course.
The observer's form began to recede into the walls.
You have until the Concordium's next major phase shift, what you would call 3 standard months. After that, certain options become unavailable.
I'll convey your offer to Earth's leadership.
No,
the word echoed with sudden force.
This offer is for you, Dorian Vex. The decision rests with the apex predator, not with the herd he protects. We recognize the true power structure of your species.
Before Dorian could respond, the chamber plunged back into absolute darkness. When light returned seconds later, he found himself standing outside the mysterious doorway, which had vanished, leaving only a smooth wall where it had been. His team was waiting at the designated extraction point, tension visible in their postures.
2 hours and 58 minutes,
Rhea noted with relief that didn't quite mask her concern.
What happened?
A job offer, Dorian replied, his mind already calculating implications and contingencies. As they walked, he suddenly pressed his thumb against his wrist, activating the molecular recorder embedded in his bloodstream, a technology so integrated with his biology that even he sometimes forgot its presence. The device had captured everything. Back in their quarters, Dorian and Rhea reviewed the recording in a secure environment, isolated from all possible surveillance.
This changes everything,
Rhea said quietly after they had analyzed the encounter for the third time.
If the observers have been monitoring Earth for centuries,
then nothing about our presence here is surprising to them, Dorian finished. They've been watching us develop the very capabilities they now want to exploit.
can we trust anything they said? For all we know, they could be manipulating us like we've been manipulating the Council species.
Dorian smiled grimly. Almost certainly. The question is whether their manipulation aligns with our interest.
And does it?
Partially. They're offering advancement we can't achieve on our own in the short term, but at the cost of autonomy we can't afford to surrender. He leaned back, studying the holographic representation of the observers. What interests me more is what they implied about the Concordium itself, a containment system. For what? Rhea's expression darkened.
And why would they choose you specifically to make this offer? Not us, official leadership, not even our full team.
Because I'm the most compromised, Dorian said, with a self-awareness that surprised her. The most extensively modified, the most predatory. He caught her studying him with a new intensity. What is it, Rhea?
I've been tracking your biometric data since we arrived at the Concordium. Her voice was carefully neutral. Your enhancements are evolving, self-modifying beyond their original parameters.
How? The Apex program has strict limitations to prevent exactly that.
See for yourself.
She projected a series of scans showing subtle but unmistakable changes in his neural pathways, muscle density, and cellular structure. Dorian studied the data, his expression unreadable. Have you shared this with the others?
No, but Moira suspects something. Her empathetic implants have detected fluctuations in your emotional signatures.
And what do these fluctuations suggest?
Rhea met his gaze directly. Increasing detachment, accelerated strategic processing, diminished empathetic response. She paused. You're becoming more efficient, Dorian, and less human.
He considered this without visible reaction. Is that your assessment as my second in command, or as something else? The question hung between them, laden with unspoken complexities.
Both, she finally answered. We've worked together since the program began. I know the baseline you started from.
And you're concerned I'm becoming a threat to the mission.
I'm concerned you're unraveling, that you're losing yourself.
Her voice softened slightly.
A predator without constraints.
Dorian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. No, I'm becoming what they'll never see coming. He rose, ending the conversation with characteristic decisiveness. We have 3 months before the observers expect an answer. In the meantime, we have a seat on the council to secure. The Zoxdalian executor is prepared to formally sponsor our petition at tomorrow's session. I want everyone ready to capitalize on the opportunity. As he turned to leave, Rhea spoke again.
Dorian, whatever the observers are offering, whatever you're becoming, don't lose sight of why we're here.
I never do, he replied without turning back. Humanity first, always. But as he walked away, he couldn't help but wonder if the very concept of humanity was more fluid than either of them had been trained to believe. The petition for Earth's elevation to full council status triggered exactly the reaction Dorian had anticipated. Outrage from traditional powers, cautious support from those who had benefited from human alliance, and thinly veiled panic from those who recognized the speed of humanity's rise for the unprecedented phenomenon it was on. The petition for Earth's elevation to full council status triggered exactly the reaction Dorian had anticipated. Outrage from traditional powers, cautious support from those who had benefited from human alliance, and thinly veiled panic from those who recognized the speed of humanity's rise for the unprecedented phenomenon it was on. The Concordium's Grand Assembly Hall was filled to capacity for the formal hearing. Representatives from every recognized species packed the tiered seating, creating a living mosaic of evolutionary diversity. The 9 occupied their elevated platforms, while Earth's team stood at the center, a position traditionally reserved for supplicants or accused. The Zoxtalian executor rose to present Earth's petition, his exoskeleton polished to a ceremonial gleam. "Honored Council, esteemed representatives," he began, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into melodious Concordium standard. "I stand before you to champion an unprecedented motion, the acceleration of Earth's probationary period and their immediate inclusion as a core influence within the Concordium." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Such an acceleration had occurred only twice in the Concordium's long history. "The humans have demonstrated exceptional aptitude for interstellar diplomacy," the executor continued. "Their contributions to trade efficiency alone have increased overall Concordium prosperity by 3% in a single quarter. Their cultural exchange initiatives have fostered understanding between traditionally opposed factions." The Vexar representative interrupted, mandibles clicking furiously.
"This is absurd. They have been among us for barely half a cycle. The traditional probationary period exists for good reason, to ensure new species understand and respect our established order." "With respect," the executioner countered, "the probationary period exists to evaluate capability and contribution. Earth has exceeded all metrics by which we typically measure readiness."
The debate escalated, with a dozen species rising to voice objections or support. Dorian observed silently, his enhanced senses tracking micro-expressions, pheromone releases, and subtle communications between delegations. Finally, the senior member of the 9, Tavrani Elder, whose crystalline form bore the accumulated wisdom of centuries, raised a limb for silence.
"The petition raises valid questions about our traditional processes,"
she acknowledged, her voice resonating through the hall.
"Perhaps it would be illuminating to hear from the humans themselves."
All eyes turned to Dorian. He stepped forward, the perfect picture of dignity and measured confidence. "Esteemed Council, honored representatives," he began, his voice calibrated to carry naturally without seeming artificially enhanced. "Earth does not petition for elevation out of ambition or impatience, but out of recognition that these times demand new approaches." He gestured to the assembled delegations. "Look around you. The Concordium was established as a forum of cooperation and mutual advancement. Yet, in recent cycles, trade disputes have increased by 27%. Territorial conflicts have risen. Resource competition has intensified. Data projections appeared above the assembly, sourced from the Concordium's own records. These are not merely cyclical fluctuations. They represent systemic stress that threatens the stability of what you have built over millennia." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "Earth offers a fresh perspective. We are young, cosmically speaking, but that youth brings with it adaptability. We have no ancient grudges, no territorial claims dating back to forgotten wars. What we offer is innovation, mediation, and a commitment to the Concordium's founding principle. That together we achieve what divided we cannot." The assembly had fallen completely silent. Even his opponents were listening with reluctant attention. "You have tested us," Dorian continued, "challenged us, doubted us, as is your right. We have responded not with indignation, but with results. The Halexian corridor dispute, deadlocked for decades, resolved in a single quarter. The Moravian-Tavrani trade crisis averted. The Quantum Fold Treaty ratified with unprecedented consensus." He took a step forward, his posture somehow simultaneously humble and commanding. "We do not ask for elevation as a reward. We ask for the opportunity to serve the Concordium more effectively, from a position that allows us to bring our full capabilities to bear on our shared challenges." As he concluded, the hall remained silent for several heartbeats before erupting into a cacophony of reaction. The 9 withdrew for deliberation, leaving the assembly to debate among themselves. "Masterfully done," Rhea murmured as Dorian rejoined his team. "Though you neglected to mention how exactly we resolved those conflicts." "Details," Dorian replied with a slight smile. "The results speak for themselves." "And what happens when they realize those results came at cost they never anticipated?" "By then, it will be too late to matter." The 9's deliberation lasted longer than customary, a sign that Earth's petition had genuinely challenged established protocols. When they returned, the Tavrani elder announced their decision.
"The Council has determined that Earth's petition merits formal consideration. A final vote will be held in 7 cycles, during which all Concordium members may register their position. Should 2/3 majority be achieved, Earth will be granted core influence status."
It wasn't the immediate acceptance Dorian had hoped for, but neither was it rejection. 7 cycles, approximately 2 Earth weeks, gave them time to secure the necessary votes. Phase 3. He instructed his team as they returned to their quarters. Every leverage point, every alliance, every compromise and threat we've prepared. It's time to call in every marker. The operation that followed was the most intensive diplomatic campaign in Earth's history. Across the Concordium, the team implemented strategies prepared months in advance. The Acrylian Consortium representative, who had developed a deep personal attachment to Cassandra, publicly declared the species' support, breaking a centuries-old alliance with the Vexar. 3 minor powers announced their backing after Lucian's replacement, a financial specialist named Ellen, demonstrated how Earth's proposed trade reforms would quadruple their economic growth within a decade. The Halexian representatives, caught in a compromising situation with technology provided by Dex, quietly promised their votes in exchange for discretion. But for every victory, there was resistance. The Vexar formed a coalition of traditional powers intent on blocking Earth's advancement. The Moravian Syndicate deployed their own covert operatives to counter human influence. Most concerning, several neutral parties reported being approached by entities speaking on behalf of ancient interest. Almost certainly the observers, moving to block Dorian's team. 3 days before the final vote, disaster struck. The Zoxthalian Executor, Earth's primary advocate, was found dead in his private chambers, his respiratory system flooded with a toxin that left no trace but matched the signature of compounds found in Dex's laboratory.
"We're being framed,"
Dex insisted, analyzing the reports.
"This is a designer compound that mimics my work, but the chirality is reversed. Someone studied my methods and replicated them with a deliberate signature." "The observers?"
Rhea suggested, her expression grim. "Possibly," Dorian replied. "Or someone who wants us to believe it's them." Either way, we've lost our strongest ally and gained a powerful accusation.
The vote is in 60 hours. Without the executor, we're at least 20 votes short of the threshold.
Dorian's expression remained calm, but his team could detect the cold calculation behind his eyes. Then we need to change the game. He turned to Ellen. The financial contingency we discussed. Implemented.
She hesitated. That's an extreme option, Dorian. I would destabilize.
Not a request, he interrupted. The Concordium has just escalated from diplomatic maneuvering to assassination. We respond in kind. Within hours, financial systems throughout the Concordium began experiencing unexplained anomalies. Trading algorithms faltered. Currency values fluctuated wildly. Supply chains for critical resources showed sudden, catastrophic shortages that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Meanwhile, Cassandra activated deep-cover cultural agents who had been placing carefully crafted information in key locations for months. Rumors spread of conspiracy against Earth orchestrated by species fearful of human potential. Historical records mysteriously surfaced showing similar treatment of other innovative species who had subsequently been driven to extinction. The Concordium, built on stability and predictable processes, began to fracture under precisely targeted pressure. Dorian observed the growing chaos with clinical detachment, directing his team's efforts with ruthless efficiency. When Rhea questioned whether they had crossed a line from securing Earth's position to actively harming the Concordium itself, his response was chilling in its clarity. The Concordium will survive. It's designed to absorb and adapt to stress. What won't survive is the illusion that humanity can be controlled through traditional means. The night before the final vote, Dorian received another black invitation. A small obsidian token appearing on his private terminal. The observers request clarification of intent, read the message. Final opportunity for alignment. He crushed the token in his enhanced grip, the material shattering despite its molecular strength. No response required, he said to the empty room. The council chamber was subdued when the final vote began. The assassination, financial disruptions, and spreading unrest had cast a shadow over proceedings typically marked by at least the appearance of civility. Dorian and his team stood at the center as before, but the atmosphere had changed. They were no longer viewed as ambitious newcomers, but as potential threats to the Concordium's stability. One by one, representatives announced their positions. The tally grew tense as expected supporters fell away and unexpected allies emerged. Species that had been bitter enemies for generations found themselves voting together, either for or against Earth, but unified in their reaction to the new dynamic humans. had introduced. When the final count was announced, a hush fell over the chamber. Earth had secured exactly the 2/3 majority required by a margin of 3 votes. The Tavrani elder's crystalline form dimmed slightly as she formally declared,
By the established protocols of the Concordium, Earth is hereby elevated to core influence status. Dorian Vex will assume position of Grand Envoy, with all attendant responsibilities and privileges.
Victory should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt ominous, as if the chamber itself held its breath, waiting for consequences yet unrevealed. The formal investiture took place immediately. Ancient symbols transferred to Earth's keeping, access codes provided to the inner chambers where the 9, now 10, would shape the Concordium's future. As the ceremony concluded, Dorian felt a subtle vibration against his skin, a message from Rhea, transmitted through their subdermal communication system. The observers are moving, multiple delegations reporting direct contact. Something's happening station-wide. He acknowledged with a microscopic nod, maintaining his expression of solemn gratitude as dignitaries offered congratulations with varying degrees of sincerity. Hours later, when the ceremonies had concluded, Dorian stood alone in the Grand Envoy's office, a space that had never before been occupied by a human. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Concordium's core, where energy from the white dwarf pulsed through crystalline conduits like the station's lifeblood. Rhea entered without announcing herself, her security clearance now equal to his own. "Congratulations, Grand Envoy," she said, her tone making the title sound more like an accusation than an honor. "We've achieved everything we came for. Earth has its seat at the table." "Not everything," Dorian replied, still gazing at the pulsing energy below. "This is just the beginning." "The beginning of what exactly?" She moved to stand beside him. "Our mission was to secure humanity's place in the Concordium. Mission accomplished. Unless you've developed other objectives." He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "The observers made me an offer. Service in exchange for advancement. And I declined." "Yet, here we are," she noted, "having advanced further and faster than any species in Concordium history. Almost as if someone wanted us in this precise position." Dorian smiled thinly. "I've been considering that possibility since our first unexpected victory." "You think we're being manipulated? By whom?" "Perhaps the observers, perhaps the Nine themselves, perhaps something else entirely." He returned his gaze to the window. "The Concordium is older than any of its current members realize. It has purposes beyond diplomacy." "What purposes?" Instead of answering directly, Dorian activated the room's secure systems, bringing up deep scans of the station's architecture, scans that had only become available with his elevation to Grand Envoy. "Look at the underlying structure," he said, highlighting patterns that repeated throughout the station's oldest sections. "These aren't just support systems. They're containment mechanisms. The entire Concordium is built around something at its core." "Containing what?" "I don't know yet, but I intend to find out." His expression softened slightly as he looked at her. "The question is, are you with me, even if it means going beyond our original orders?" Rhea studied him, searching for signs of the man she had known before the enhancements, before the Concordium, before whatever transformation was clearly still underway behind his eyes. "You're not the same," she said finally. "The Apex program changed you more than any of us anticipated." "Of course it did. That was always the point." His smile held genuine warmth now, possibly the most human expression she had seen from him in weeks. "We didn't come here to just play their game, Rhea. We came to change it." "And if changing it means becoming something other than human?" "Then we adapt." He extended his hand to her, a surprisingly vulnerable gesture from a man engineered to show no weaknesses. "That's what humans do best." After a long moment, she took his hand. In that moment of connection, as Earth's representative stood at the heart of an ancient station orbiting a dying star, something shifted in the Concordium's carefully balanced power structure. Something irreversible. Below them, alien diplomats bowed their heads in formal acknowledgement of the new order. Some with resentment, others with hope, all with the recognition that the galaxy's newest predators had taken their place at the table.